Just two guys having a conversation, man.
Chosen to follow the call. My soul is breaking free. You awaken me. Stolen my time to move on, but now I can see seizing destiny. Welcome to my evolution.
Welcome to the dumbest guy in the room. My name is Bill. Today I have a somebody I've been waiting to talk to for a very long time. We finally got around to it since he has some time. Everybody, welcome Mike Kennedy. Hey, Mike, how you doing, man?
How you doing, Bill? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem, man. I think the timing probably couldn't have been any better, honestly. Really, there's been a lot going on, and I think I just want to start with the school board and why you decided to run for school board president.
Well, technically, I wasn't running for president. I was just running.
Oh,
for
you were vice
one of
president,
the,
right?
No, one of the directors. So the way it works in PA, there's 9 board members. 4 of them were up for re-election, and I was one of the 4 candidates running against them.
Okay. And what made you decide to take that step? Because that's a big responsibility.
Yes, it is a big responsibility. So the way it really panned out for me is I'm a public educator myself. I'm a Philadelphia school teacher. I love being a Philly teacher. I worked very hard to become a Philly teacher, and you couldn't hold me at it working in Philly. So way it went down for me is I have 6 kids, and 2 of my older boys went through North Penn K through 12. My younger kids started in North Penn, and about 4 years ago, for family reasons and religious reasons, we put our kids in Catholic school. It was before all this stuff happened, or whatever you want to call it, and but I always kind of paid attention to it. And for me personally, it was about over a year ago. A friend of mine who happens to be involved in local politics, I coach his son in lacrosse, and we were just sitting around, and he asked me about it, and we would talk about it at lacrosse tournaments. And the thing that jumped out at me that really made me raise my hand is I was seeing issues in my school district in North Penn that I had experience with. And it wasn't that I had the answers. It was more of I saw how they were trying to deal with growing issues that I kind of already went down that road. I already saw where they were successful as a Philly teacher and where they failed or where they could have made improvement. And I just wanted to be part of the conversation to say, hey, why don't we turn left here instead of right? Because I already went right and it didn't work out. And I think if we turn left, we might get the result we're trying to accomplish. And that's really why I wanted to join the conversation. That's really all it was about for me.
When you said you're a Philly school teacher, what school do you teach at, if you don't mind me asking?
I teach it, no problem. Frankfurt High School.
Frankfurt?
Been at Frankfurt I'm at Frankfurt High School. I teach 9th grade world history. I've taught African American history. I also teach sports and entertainment marketing. I was a dean of students for over 4 years. I coached the boys lacrosse team, which I started at Frankfurt, and the girls soccer team. I started in middle school, actually, when I first got out of Philly, but I love being in Philly.
Yeah, man, I don't think anybody that's never went to – I grew up in Philadelphia, Northeast. I went to Ryan for about a half a year, and then they gave me the boot, and I ended up in Philly Public School at George Washington High School. And I don't think a lot of people that in North Penn that never went to those schools would understand, the difference.
Yeah.
It's a huge difference. So the fact that like you have the experience of what a situation could turn into, I think is pretty big, because I mean, I could walk, I don't know about Frankfurt. I never went to Frankfurt, but I could walk in the doors to Washington, walk out the back door every day. My parents would they had no idea. And then, 6 years later, they just give you a degree and say, good luck. Like that's what my school was for Washington. you know, I hope Frankfurt's not like that, but I understand where you're coming from with you seeing the other side of the other outcome, and you were trying to prevent that, and I understand that. But being a teacher before deciding to go into on the board, were you into politics at all? Were you did you watch it? I mean, you teach history, so you have to have, you know, at least a little bit of a background. But were you like,
Yeah, in my family, talking politics is kind of like a sport. It's just what we do. It's I've never I in today's world I never understood how people can't talk politics, and everybody like goes into this weird corner and goes, oh, I don't want to talk politics. In my family, we it's all we did, and it would get we'd have some good drag out fights and have a good time with it and make arguments and laugh about it, and still we're able to love one another over it. And I believe that's the only way you actually solve these problems. You don't take it personally. People are allowed to disagree, but the only way you're actually going to come to any kind of conclusion or how to address a problem is you come to compromise. And the way you have to really get it out there is not be afraid to say something with in fear of it could bite you in the butt down the line. And that's where we've come as a country, and I don't understand that. I really can't wrap my head around it. Now, maybe it's thick skin, maybe it's just the way I grew up, but I always believe that I want to know what you think. That way I can not offend you or know where you're coming from. And that's how I actually attack my classroom. I believe you have to feel history to really understand history. And I believe the same thing applies to politics and issues and being an activist or whatever your cause may be. You want the other side to know where you're coming from and have a emotional connection to where you're coming from. That way you can really go, okay, they're very passionate about this, so therefore I want that person to be happy within reason. And we don't do that anymore. And it's something I kind of hope we can get back
I would agree. I think the emotion thing's a very big a big point because I think that everything we do is emotional, and then we kind of express it in words. And when we're not allowed to say certain words, you're basically telling us we're not allowed to feel a certain way, or we're supposed to hide it. So we're being people that we're not. So how are we supposed to really, fix anything if we're not telling the truth? And
I mean, it goes against everything therapy-wise. I mean, what do they say? You go see a psychiatrist so you can get it out. But yet we go into our society and we're not allowed to talk about our issues that actually impact our life. I mean, every marriage counselor tells you guys need to communicate more. But yet in our society, in our world, we can't talk about how we want to address issues because in fear of being, blacklisted or looked at differently or shunned in our communities. And it just leads for it's a recipe for disaster, in my opinion. I mean, everything in history. I mean, some of the most beautiful and greatest moments in our history came from emotion. I mean, imagine if Mrs. Till didn't have Emmett's pictures taken, and those pictures were not shown all over the world, the civil rights movement wouldn't have gotten started. Dr. King making sure the news, the TV cameras weren't there and to show the Children's March and the German Shepherds and the water hoses. That was an emotional reaction that people in Seattle, Washington, and various other places throughout the country where they didn't see those things got an emotional reaction as a nation and said, what are you doing down there? We're not going to allow this as a country anymore. And that was literally the civil rights movement. And it all came from emotion. And we need to not be afraid to share emotions.
I agree with you. I really do. And I think right now we're about to go into at least North Penn. I don't live down up there anymore, fortunately. But a lot of people aren't as fortunate as me that are, capable of just up and moving 10 and a half hours away. But I did, and I did it for my kids. I did it for my family, and it was a good decision. But that's why I stay in the conversation up there, because I know that not everybody can do that. The other thing is I also am not, I don't have anything being held against my kids. I feel like a lot of parents are afraid to speak out because they feel their kids going to face some repercussions if they voice their opinion. Um,
Hmm.
so that's why I
We
still,
had that. Yeah.
that's why I still do. That's why I still speak up. The current board, they blocked me on everything. I'm not, and the reasoning for it was I don't live there anymore. And it's whatever. But all of you still, none of you have ever denied a conversation with me, and I appreciate that.
There's a lot of people who don't speak out because they're worried about ramifications, and it's true. We actually had it with one of our candidates, and again, I've been in the community for 30 years, and I cannot tell you. I know a lot of people in administration and teach. I know a lot of people, Bill, that they're terrified. They're terrified to speak out, and that's what I guess empowered me a little bit more. I mean, once you raise your hand and you get into something like this, you're like, okay, I'm doing this for this reason. And then that reason actually multiplies and then multiplies and multiplies again once you look behind the curtain, because it's like, wait a minute, why can't you speak up? Why can't you say this? What do you mean you're afraid? What do you mean this happened? And nothing was done. And you end up really trying to become an advocate for those people who don't want to speak up. Again, me personally, my kids aren't in North Penn. My kids happen to be in Catholic school in our community. But I know a lot of kids that I coached over the years who are in North Penn, and those parents will reach out to me. And you just want to be, I never looked at it through the eyes of they're the enemy. I never look,
Exactly.
I don't let malice in my heart. I may disagree with my opponents who I ran against. Me and Mr. Casa may not agree with each other when it comes to solving problems, but I will go down the road of saying we both are trying to solve the problem. And that's how that's how I always looked at it. It's the only way to really, truly get to the root of the problem and come up with a possible solution is to be able to have those conversations. And I think that gave me a very unique perspective. Of the four people I ran with, the four of us on my slate, three people I ran with, I was the one who I was always chill with it, man. When I went to the debate, I had an attitude of I cared, but I didn't care. You know what I mean? My kids weren't being really impacted. The only thing that I was slightly worried about is I happened to be on one side of the aisle and I happened to be a Philadelphia school teacher. And I was a little worried, like, hey, how long is their reach? Can they actually mess with my livelihood?
Where did your mind go after like that thought process?
Well, some of the topics were concerning me a little bit. That I didn't know if they were going to be misconstrued to make me out. I didn't know how ugly, how political this can get, and that was another thing that was very eye-opening. I never realized that this was so political. I
Oh yeah.
went into this with the mindset of it's apolitical. Yeah, people are on political parties, but it was never party driven. And that was a kick in the teeth when 3 days after I filed my paperwork, I was sued by the president, Tina Stoll, one of my opponents, to have me removed from the ballot for no reason,
For
literally
what?
for no reason. And I literally was teaching my class and I got served in my driveway to have me removed for a clerical error. And the whole strategy. Yeah, Tina Stoll sued myself and Mr. Froelich, who I run with. He's a Norristown school teacher, and we were sued 3 days after filing to be on the ballot. And it literally was clerical error. We had to appear in court in less than 24 hours. I had to take a half
Oh
a
my
personal
God.
day, show up in court with a lawyer, and if I wouldn't have shown up, I would have been removed from the ballot, thus robbing the people of North Penn of having candidates to run against them. And it became very obvious very quickly that it was political. And that was the very first time I had to actually think, like, wait a minute, how am I going to have a conversation about equity? How am I going to even talk about critical race theory in a positive or a negative without them taking my words and doing what they want with them? And next thing you know, I'm getting called into my office, literally at school, and getting in trouble with my district. And
Wow.
and now I'm proud to say that didn't happen. And, that they did. I think that was probably one of their biggest struggles with myself and Mr. Froelich is you couldn't they couldn't use certain pages out of their playbook, and that bothered them. I mean, how can you call a Philadelphia school teacher a racist? It's almost impossible. You can't go down that road, because I would just laugh at them. Like, really, you're gonna try to talk to me about equity?
Exactly.
It becomes absurd.
No,
And I think that scared them more than anything.
I think that they were scared towards the end, just based on their demeanor, and they switched their game plan. They stopped like preaching hate and started to embrace everybody coming together for like 3 days, and then that stopped. But you're right with the Philadelphia thing, man, and the Philadelphia school. That's what I was talking about in the beginning. I don't think that I don't think Casa understands. He's never been in the Philadelphia school district. It's different. It's different. I moved out of Philadelphia to North Penn to put my kids in that school, and that didn't last very long. I just think that what they're doing and attacking people is not good for the people that they're pretending to protect. I don't. I have a whole different mindset on all of that. I don't want to get into that with you. I want to talk about this election, because I didn't know that that they did that. I mean, was that public knowledge? How did that?
Oh yeah, no, I went up. I spoke 3 times at action meetings. The first time I went up, I spoke, and I never really. I never really attacked them. I quoted them and blatant questions using their words. The first time I spoke at an action meeting, I asked Mr. Fusco, one of my opponents, said some very alarming things to me. And again, it was one of his meetings that he was involved in. And I read his quote where he said that there is a reckoning that not only North Penn needs to deal with, that has coming to them, but as a nation, we need a reckoning that we need to deal with. And I read him his quote, and I said, "What reckoning? What did we do wrong? What bad traditions do we have here in North Penn that we need to deal with? What are you referring to, and why are you bringing political activism into our classrooms?" And I didn't think that was attacking him. And then the second time I addressed Mrs. Stoll, and I said, and I was trying to be a little, funny about it. And I said, "Hey, school is starting. Do I need to set aside any personal days and do my lesson plans where I'm not going to be in one day because you're going to sue me in court again to have me removed from the ballot?" So I addressed them, and they wouldn't say anything. They do not. This current board doesn't engage at all.
No, they don't.
Public comment, none, and they limit how long people can speak, which has always bothered me, because the First Amendment's the First Amendment. Mm-hmm. And I think it's very hypocritical when Mrs. Stoll, and again, I'm not attacking her. I don't really want to go down that road. But prior to this board, there was unlimited time for public comment. And she would go up there, and literally in January 2017, she went on for 4.5 minutes lobbying to be appointed to the school board. But then as soon as she gets on the school board, she's telling people you can only speak for 2 minutes, sometimes 3 minutes. And if you don't, if you're not done in that time, you feel like you might even get tackled and the mic gets turned off. It's crazy. Yeah. So, I would address them with these things, and I would ask questions like Mr. Casa, very fair question. If you're reelected, will you serve the full 4 years, and will you abstain from running for any other political office? I think a very fair question, since you're looking for reelection. And he was asked that question 5 times since May, and would never answer the question.
No, he won't. Which is a thing of guilt. So it means he's not. Yes. It means he's going to run again. Yeah.
And what's really sad and scary about it is he's literally. I mean, the election is. I'm not conceding anything, but let's just say it's not going our way now. I mean, I was ahead the day after the election, and now I'm in 5th place. The guys that were in 7th and 8th place on November 3rd in the morning have jumped me because of the mail-in ballots. I'm not going to get into it, but whatever. And I look at it like, all right, you won the election. You're going to be sworn in the month of December and start your 2nd term. In March of 2022, you are going to be signing paperwork and starting your campaign to run for another political office. And this is where people really didn't pay attention. We just had an election. I received, I want to say my number is like 12,000 votes. And I'm not lobbying to be appointed. I'm not going to do that. But we just had an election, and a person who beat me in the election is going to either resign because he won an election or isn't going to serve out his term. And the board will be picking his replacement, not the people of North Penn, the board. And it's not just one, but two of the current people I just ran against, Mr. Fusco and Mr. Casa, we know will be running for other political offices, specifically Pennsylvania House seats that pay $90,000 a year. They will be doing that. And in my opinion, the board robbed the people of North Penn of a representative government when it comes to school board, because now 7 or 8 members of that school board will be picking their replacement, and they will serve out that term.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's I can't even. I don't even understand that.
What I don't get, man, is how the people of North Penn can't see the hypocrisy in everything they say is what they're doing. Whatever they say you're doing is what they're doing. Like it,
yes,
and it works, and it blows my mind. For example, I think I seen a long Facebook post or a tweet, which is all they use to communicate is these 280 character platforms. They can't have a conversation for anything. They just use 280 characters. But anyway, he put something that said, these Republicans are using school boards as stepping stones for political office. I was like, is this dude joking? Is he joking? It's not even like it was in the future. Like you already did that. You already tried that and you lost.
Well, that was not my angle, but that was my question to him. And the community brought that to his attention more than me. I happened to bring it up in the debate, literally hours before the debate. And again, I will say right now, Jonathan Casa, Christian Fusco, they have every right to run for any political office they want to. The issue this community, and every community, by the way, throughout the nation, is when you have school board members running for something while they're sitting on the board. Mm-hmm. If Jonathan Casa turned around and said, hey, I'm going to resign and go run for something, hey, God love you, buddy. I respect you. Hey, go do you, all right? But when you're on the board, it comes up, a conflict of interest is created. Every community member should not question if you vote on something, if you propose something, if you're debating something as a school board director, that your intention is in the best interest of the students and the community, not for your political gain. Exactly. And that's what they create. And they never will admit that, or they just don't see it, or I don't know why they can't see it. It's so blatantly obvious.
Do you know how many, I want to get to the votes. Do you know how many votes there were in 2017 total?
Total in 2017, that's real easy to find. I know it was less than what we have today. We had record numbers. It was literally record numbers that turned out to vote in this last election.
No, it was, and I'm gonna. I'll tell you what they were, because I looked them up. And in 2017, the total amount of votes was 70,839, right?
Okay.
And that's it. That's people that went, that had to go, because 2017 you had to.
Yeah, they got off the butt and went. Yeah.
You had to go. So if you look at the votes from this election, and this is the last update that I have. I don't have a timestamp on this, but it was the most recent one I have. There was 102,168. So you're 30,000 of them were mail-in, all mail-in votes.
Yeah.
So there was still 73,000 votes that were done at the polls.
Yeah.
Do those numbers?
That's big numbers. People were very engaged, and myself, I know I crossed over a decent amount of Democrats that went my way. I mean, that was the feeling I was getting, is I was getting a lot of Democrats that were reaching out over to me because I guess they related to me being a teacher and everything. I guess, you know, but obviously it's not panning out the way we thought it was going to pan out with the mail and ballot situation.
Well, let me tell you, man, I think the connection that you give off, and the rest of you know, the people you were running with, is you didn't sound like robots. You didn't sound like it felt real. Like how you said, when you're speaking, you need to feel what you're doing, and it just, there's something that was coming off of like your guys' energy just was real. It's not, you know, it's not like some repeating from some other politician and just saying things to say things that sound good. You know what I mean? Like it sounds, you sound real.
And there was moments in the campaign where I would like, God, I don't even want to sound like that, because I would say something, it would kind of come off like that. I'm like, ew, I don't want to be that guy. So I would, you know, I would make fun of that. It's politics can't be near our schools,
Right.
because I'm not even saying the issue that somebody's trying to address that happens to be political isn't right or wrong, but who decides if it's right or wrong? That's where it becomes sticky.
Mm-hmm.
Like, who's to say, like the equity issue, all right? The equity issue to me was definitely an issue that I take personally. My issue when it came to what's going on equity in North Penn School District, it's how they're doing it, how they're trying to address the problem as somebody who lives equity as a Philadelphia school teacher. I mean, my school is predominantly African American Latino.
Yep.
It's just it's what it is. I mean, there's no denying that. And the way they're trying to address it, they would say things like, "Oh, well, we have to this will solve the problem if we have more diverse representation in our history lessons."
Do you want to ask you, because
Yes, absolutely. I totally agree that there should be more diversity in history lessons. 100%. And you're talking to somebody who teaches African American history in the city of Philadelphia. People don't know this, but in the city of Philadelphia, it is a required class in 10th grade.
Yep.
It has been for over 10 years.
Yeah, I took it.
You cannot graduate unless you have African American history for a whole year. That's a great class. I love teaching it, but guess what? That doesn't close the academic gap. It doesn't solve any of our problems in Philly. We've had it for over 10 years. To say that if we had more representative history would actually help our kids be more engaged, I would just raise my hand and go, I can prove to you that that's not exactly true. You know?
Right.
So it's the way they try to address certain things it doesn't add up when it comes to actually solving the problem. And again, one of the things you learn as a Philly school teacher, and we laugh and joke about it all the time, is the kids are the ones who actually teach us this lesson. Philly teachers are really good at smelling bullshit.
Oh yeah.
That's because the kids smell it on us. They know that we're not there for the right reasons and loving them. Nope, you won't be a Philly teacher long. It's that simple.
I had a few of them teachers, man. I remember the one class. I had a history class, and I would go in, and the assignment in the class, because everybody knew the teacher wasn't doing anything, and the teacher literally gave us an assignment of just pick a textbook page, rewrite the page, and that's it. And then you get to leave. That was my class.
And the kids would do that. They want to be
And that's
taught.
right. Yep.
And so there was things like equity that I raised my hand for and would say, I get what equity is a legitimate problem. There's no denying it. And I've yet to meet anybody who disagrees with that. The problem is it's not being addressed the right way. And they think it's going to solve the problem. And all I was trying to do, and what I would still continue and love to do, is try to say, no, that's not how you're doing it.
Yep.
That's not how you should address this. The whole issue with the books, they didn't really, they have no real answer on how to solve that. It's a perfect example. I don't know if you understand what I'm talking about. But
No, I do. And
there was some inappropriate books that were found in the elementary school. I know why the books were selected. I know why the books are there. But there has to be some kind of safety net, if you will, for the parents who don't want their kids exposed to them. I get that they're there because there may be a kid who has questions and wants to feel included. Nobody's arguing against that. But nobody's raising their hand and saying, well, wait a minute, let's come up with a system. And the way I wanted to solve it, I thought was the most logical way. Just create a red flag system. So it's ridiculous. So all you have to do, it's already an electronic system. I don't care what the book is. It could be All Boys Aren't Blue to Huck Finn to The Killing Mockingbird. All these books over these years that everybody wants to ban. All you do is create a red flag system that if the book is checked out, an email is sent to the parents or guardian and saying, hey, your kid checked out this book. Now the parent is involved. Now the parent can have a conversation with the child. I don't understand why that isn't a logical way of solving this problem.
Well, I think coming from their point of view, it's they want to take the parents out of the problem. They don't want the parent to have any responsibility because the parent's wrong. I mean, I don't know if you watched. They recommended this YouTube channel during that Pride Month, and it was there was one that was called like Woke Kindergarten, and the other one was called Queer Kid Stuff, and it was for the one video was for kindergartners, and the woman in the video said, "I know all you are sad, you know, Trump got in office." You know, everyone that voted for Trump is, you know, they're mean. They're all mean people. And I was like, what? Like, what if a kid watched that? And now their parents mean.
Yeah. So to me, that is blatant politics.
It's a 100%.
I don't connect that to trying to adjust the equity.
Mm-mm.
You know,
No.
Having books in a library that are the subject of the LGBTQ community, that's trying to adjust an equity thing. Bringing blatant politics into it like that, that's political.
See, I
You're
think
now officially bringing politics in.
I think that's the big issue, though. I think you kind of nailed it there. You're not looking at it from a political gain, selfish desire standpoint, where other people are using the equity problem as a selfish desire and a way to be seen, to be heard, and to abuse other people's oppression by exploiting it, where they're not really putting solutions in. They're just creating the problem so that they can continue to move up their, you know, political ladder. That's the way I see it.
Exactly. So they're using it like you would say as a stepping stone. And what happens is when you have politicians on the school board, people who are seeking higher office, they become emboldened to the party. The party ends up pulling the strings, if you will, of hey, we need this in school, we need that in the school. And even if I'm not going to build conspiracy here that the party's telling. I'll use Mr. Casa as an example. Using Mr. Casa to get in their agenda. I'm not going to say that. But what happens is because Mr.
I will.
Casa was... You can do that.
I say that.
I respect that. What happens is there's no lines get blurred. He won't stand up and say, no, I'm not doing that. I'm apolitical. This is school board. We're not doing that. And I will say, this is the one time you'll hear me ride for the Republican Party because I tested these guys, and I'm not a party political guy at all. That I literally looked at it when the Republican Party came to me and said, "Hey, we want you to do this." I tested them, Bill. I wanted to see if they were going to try to force me or try to get me to do things politically, like from a political agenda matter. I tested them, and they wouldn't go anywhere near it, and I was proud of that. Because if they would have tried to make me do it, I was going to nip that in the bud right from the get-go. No, I'm not your puppet. I'm here to run for these kids and these families and these taxpayers in this community. And if you don't want me to do that, I will gladly step aside, have a beer, and go watch the hockey. You know,
Yeah.
They didn't do that to me.
That's a good point. Now, I want to dig into that one. Is what if? Because I think the way that these things kind of happen is it's gradual. So I think, and I'll use Casa and Fusco. Like Fusco, I don't think Fusco is probably. I don't think he consciously knows what he's actually doing, where I think Casa does. And I think that he's always been into politics, Fusco, and he's always wanted that stage, and Casa gave that to him. And when he got it, he now is fully attached, and it doesn't matter what Casa says or does. He listens, and he repeats, and he sticks to his guns. And another reason why I believe that with Casa too is because Casa is the only one that ever keeps his cool. He knows what he's doing. He's always calm.
Yeah, I agree. But go back. I've studied it a little bit.
I've seen him lose it once.
We got him to lose it once. But if you look at Mr. Casa, in the very, very, watch his first debate. He was very much just a regular guy running, doing his thing. And where it really changed was in 2019. You can see that the party got their hooks onto him, and they saw that he could go somewhere with this. And the proof is look how much money was thrown behind him in his Pennsylvania House race.
I know.
$1.6 million.
Mm-hmm.
I think your average Pennsylvania House race run is something like $260,000, which is absurd in itself, but that's usually how much it costs to do something like that. This guy got 1.6. He had so much money he couldn't even spend all of it.
I know.
He couldn't even spend half of it. And that's what actually is the curse, because it emboldens them to that money. They're so afraid to turn off that spigot of funds coming their way. And that's why they end up making decisions. When it comes to Mr. Fusco, yeah, he definitely has some kind of political ambitions. He was called out. He's running. Don't quote me. It's either the Pennsylvania 61st or the 63rd. I always get which one is. But he's running for the Pennsylvania House. He's doing it. Everybody knows it. And against Todd Stevens again in the 151. And they're using the seat as they waited to get to where they're going. And I'm okay with them running. Go run. Knock yourself out, man. If you want to be a politician, you can be a politician. I happen to be one of those people in life that is blessed with, doing something I love. And believe me, man, I'm a high school dropout.
Me too.
A teenage dad. I did my first son when I was 16. I dropped out and drove truck. I still work for Canada Dry on Saturday, Sundays for the last 20 years. I mean, let's just say I took the long road to get where I am, and I love what I do. So I have that's how I look at it. Where
you're humble.
Yeah, right, I guess, but they.
No, it is, man. I can hear it, man. I come from the same thing. I dropped out of high school. I'm alcoholic, 5 years sober.
Congratulations.
You know what I mean? Dude? Thank you. But I've been down these roads. I've been down there. It's not fun down there. And that's all that is when you want more.
You don't want to see people go down the hard roads like we did.
Nope.
That's really what's the heart of it. You just want to look at people and go, hey, I went down that road. You don't want to go down that road. Or, why don't you try it? And that's how I literally attack my classrooms. Hey, kids, trust me. You don't got to be an straight A student, but you definitely don't want to be a dumbass either.
Yeah.
I was. That's really what you're trying to do.
That's right, babe. That's right. And look, I know you're probably getting home, and I got to get back to the office. I just want to touch on a few more things here. With this campaign, dude. I know you said you don't want to, say you lost yet or anything, but it's kind of looking that way. What mistakes do you think you made? What do you think mistakes you made? What could you have done better during that campaign to maybe have?
Well, all right. It comes from one little. I kind of got in trouble with a couple of my colleagues there. I was not a big door knocker, and it wasn't because I didn't want to not talk to people. That was the thing I hated campaigning, but I loved having the conversations. But I also had a principle from day one, and Bill, I swear on my children on this. I always looked at this as if it was any other political year, any other circumstance, I probably would have attacked it differently. But my campaign, I built it on the people will be engaged. Not doing this. If you cannot attention to your kids' education during this crazy year of COVID, with all this stuff that's going on, with the public attention the national attention for school board, why the hell would I want the job if you're not paying attention and willing to fight for your kids? And I'm proud to say, you read the numbers earlier in this conversation, how many people did pay attention, how many people were engaged on both sides of the aisle, that I said, okay. So if I made a mistake, I guess, if I would have gone out and knocked on doors, it might have made a difference. But to be honest with you, they say you got for the votes. So I lost technically by what, 3,000 votes or something like that. I would have had to knock on 6,000 doors. I wasn't going to do that. I had a principle. I was not a politician. I was not going to beg people to vote for me. You had to care about your own children, or you didn't. And if you weren't going to fight for your own kid on election day, why should I volunteer my time for the next 4 years and take time away from my family if you don't care about your kids? That's how I looked at my campaign, and I still stand by that.
I respect that answer, man. I don't
know what else I could have done. The economics was crazy. I couldn't believe, like, coming up with the money. I don't know how. That is a problem in our nation when it comes to how much it costs to run this crap. This is nuts. You know.
Yeah, that I don't even like kind of looking into it because it can bring you down to some wormholes when you get into that, man. When you follow that, it's
infuriating at this level. It shouldn't be like that.
It's scary. It's very scary. So here's another question. This doesn't have to do with your school board, but it has one to do with your right next door. How do you feel that Shay Ash is winning the re-election and he dropped out, and with the sexual allegations towards one of his students?
I'm very.
How do you still win?
I'm familiar with the story. The one thing that you could probably do, and you should probably look at a little closer, I didn't get a chance to do it. I saw that he won. I think he came in 4th out of that race.
He did.
And the question is, remember, a lot of people can mail in those ballots ahead of time.
Yep.
That story dropped not that long ago, and I'm wondering if a lot of those votes came through mail-in ballots, and those people are regretting their votes and wondering if they should take those votes back. But because it was mail-in ballots, people literally voted and put it in the mailbox.
Exactly.
And that's kind of one of the things that happened in our little district is we were told there was only about 6,000 mail-in ballots out there. Next thing you know, oh, no, it was more than that. And I'm not coming at the mail-in ballot thing. That's not that's a whole nother level. But I kind of get the feeling when it comes to Shay, and I don't know the guy, but I think there might have been a lot of people who mailed in their mail-in ballots way too early and then wish they could pull them back. And that's, I guess you can chalk that up to another case on why we should reevaluate this mail-in ballot, especially the time frame that they're doing it.
Yep. I was thinking the same thing, honestly. I see that needs to be reviewed, man, because every day somebody could be a different person, and it comes down to that day. That's why you vote on that day. But
I mean, it literally, you come on. I mean, look, even with that right to know, we literally 2 hours before the debate got the right to know about opening our schools. 70%, and Kurt Dietrich, the superintendent, had a plan in place. 70%, and I was able to bring that up at the debate. If I would have got that 24 hours later, Bill, the public wouldn't have heard that. The public wouldn't have known that the superintendent, literally in an email, was emailing another superintendent in this area saying, my board has not done the work to try to open our schools. We can open our schools in a hybrid model with 6-foot spacing, and my board has done nothing to see if we can get this done. And, so look, it is what it is. I'm going to use my little stupid platform to just, only because I'm engaged and I like it and I have fun with it. It's something I have passion for. And will watch some school board meetings and see what's going on. I will be paying particularly close to Mr. Fusco and Mr. Castle when it comes to will they stay on the board, and who will Mrs. Stoll be looking to nominate and all that other stuff, and how will they address certain things, because there was just some things that having a dean of students, maybe you'll have me back on, we can talk about some other things, some of the ideas that are just very logical to me that would really help our district and help our community and curb a lot of these issues, because they're getting a lot of people moving out of Philly, moving up here to North Penn, and they don't know how to address the various issues that are impacting our community. And what's great is the people who are moving out of Philly, I've met a lot of them. They were my supporters. They were saying, "Oh, we need a Philly teacher in North Penn," because they don't know what the hell they're doing here when it comes to dealing with special ed and disciplinary issues. ELL, our English language learners, they have no idea how to deal with that. And I happen to have an ESOL cert. I deal with, Spanish-speaking students all day long. That's one of my classes I teach. They don't know how to address that. And to me, it's just this widening an academic gap that we don't need to go down this road to keep it widening. Let's try to reverse the course and close this gap. So that's all I was trying to do.
No, I mean, I think you guys did. We're all doing the right thing. I know you all had the right intention going in. I even think the current board, when they went in, had good intentions. I think anything, just like anything, man, if you don't pay attention to who you're listening to, who you're following, those intentions could easily be not understood anymore. You could be lying to yourself. And I think that's kind of maybe what happened. I hope, but I also hope that community can come together at some point. I mean, dude, I'm down in South Carolina right now, and it's beautiful down here, man. Everybody talks to each other, like stops on the street. Everybody helps each other.
Yes.
It's different. It's different down here. It really is.
That was the last speech I gave before the election at the action meeting. That was what I said to them after the debate. I thanked the candidates on the stage for participating. I thanked the kids that put it on for us. And I didn't really have anything prepared. You can go back and watch it yourself.
No, I didn't. I thought what you said was perfect, man.
We got to get back to September 12th. And if anything, it's for our students. It's for our kids. Because they've never experienced that, man. They've never seen an America where we actually kind of just
we're together. Yep.
We don't look at each other in categories. We're just Americans, and we need to do that. We need to figure that out. So, but yeah, man, it's been great. Seriously, reach out. We can do this anytime you want.
Yeah, man, I would definitely.
Pick a topic. Give me a call and say, "Hey, give me 10 minutes talking about this specific thing."
Yeah.
You want to get a perspective. You want a perspective of a Philly teacher to give you a little insight. Yeah, I'll give it to you. No problem.
Definitely, dude.
Plenty of stories to tell you about. Trust me.
Yeah, anytime, man. I'm more than happy to have you on. I really enjoyed this conversation. I think people that watch will really gain some insight as to what happened the past couple of years and specifically last couple of days. I appreciate your time, man. I mean, you're the only one that took the time to come on. I've asked every one of the board members to come on. I was ignored. Yeah, I was ignored, and they told, excuse me, they said I would attack them. And if you watch any of my episodes, I don't attack anybody. I kind of let you talk, and I question both, and I question both perspectives, man. I question everything that you're doing, but no attacking here. So.
Hey, and I don't even know if you have a counterpart out there on the other side of the coin with you, Bill, but if they wanted to talk to me, I'd be more than happy to sit down and talk to them, because, again, man, it's the only way we're actually going to get to the bottom of any of these situations for our kids is to have the conversation.
That's it, man. That's why I started this thing. That's why I started this thing, is to overcome the fear of judgment, just put out my, speak true words that aren't, written down and thought about. It's just I'm thinking out loud as we go. And but look, man, I'll let you go. I know you just got home. I got to get back on the phone, and I really appreciate your time, man. And I'll have you on pretty soon again. All right?
Yeah, no problem. You got my number, man.
I got it, man.
All right,
see ya.
Bye.